I swear, every single new episode of BOCCHI the Rock just continues to prove why this is the most slept-on anime to ever exist. When I talked about the first half of the series, I feel like I almost underrated it. I mean, it can't be anime of the year. This is the year that the third season of Kaguya came out, but holy shit, it somehow managed it. BOCCHI the Rock is anime of the year, and I'm finally going to stop telling myself otherwise. So here's my analysis of the second half of BOCCHI the Rock. Episode 7 isn't too plot-focused. It's a laid-back episode about the characters making a shirt for their band. In that case, what I love about it applies to what I love about every other slice-of-life anime I've seen, and that the characters are great and the jokes are funny. I already explained why the characters work in the last video, but I mainly touched on them from a thematic and story level. Given how this is a CGDCT, it means that there will be episodes where the characters had to do more than be integral to the plot. And thankfully, the characters of BOCCHI the Rock are able to do that wonderfully. Each character contrasts each other beautifully, and it makes for a super fun watch with a lot of very natural and free-flowing dialogue. Hitori's socially anxious demeanor makes it hard for her friends to interact with her, with Kita being unable to understand her, Ryo being indifferent, and Nijika failing to help her. Kita's extroversion makes her bond well with the socially capable Nijika, but occasionally overwhelming to Ryo and Hitori. Ryo's oddball personality, introversion, laziness, and desire to be contrarian can make her hard to approach, but by the end of it all, her honesty and dedication makes her well liked by everyone around her, with Kita in particular crushing on her hard. Nijika is also an extrovert, who doesn't want to leave everyone behind, making her the easiest to like, even if her unwillingness to be open with others makes her the hardest to love. Me describing these characters isn't just a ploy to get people who haven't watched part 1 to not click off the video, but it's also there to explain why more relaxed episodes like this one are so effective. These characters react to each other's traits consistently and effectively, and it not only makes them more likable, which helps make the more dramatic moments hit harder, but it also helps ground the comedy. Last time I mentioned the comedy, but I didn't do a good job at explaining why it worked. Here, though, I know what it is. It's a combination of these character interactions and the animation. When I discussed the animation last time, I only mentioned how it portrays Hitori's social anxiety, but what this episode in particular is able to show is that it's equally great at being funny. For example, the idea of Hitori not liking sports festivals doesn't even sound like a joke. It becomes one of the series' most memorable, though, when the animators capture the pain she feels upon so much as even hearing the term. The joke didn't start funny, but as the animation grows more distorted with the misery she feels being extended for minutes on end, it ends up making for one of the hardest laughs I've had watching anime. And this kind of humor isn't exclusive to this scene either. It remains consistent throughout not only the episodes before it, but also the ones that came after it. If it were only funny though, then I wouldn't put the series in such high regard, which is why the dramatic moments are what stick out the most. Of all episodes, this one showcases why the heart of BOCCHI the Rock is just as strong, if not stronger, than its incredible comedy. Episode 8 may not be my favorite episode, but it's the most important by far. This is because it's when Keisoku Band finally has a real performance. After the farce they gave at the beginning of the series, they're finally ready, and it's one of the most electric moments I've ever seen in an anime. Despite this, the struggle the band went through recruiting members to writing lyrics to making instrumentals and t-shirts, we and the characters are the only ones who know about how hard this journey has been for them. That's why when the audience is unimpressed with their mediocre output, it's so disheartening to see. It makes the characters play worse too, and why wouldn't it? They worked so hard, only for their effort to not mean anything. What sucks more is that the audience is right. They're not good enough yet. To everyone in the band, it kills their motivation, but for Hitori, it awakens something in her. Out of nowhere, she starts strumming her guitar. Potentially in a state of madness, she wants nothing more than for her talents to be noticed. Hell, she's probably stopped caring about what everyone else thinks by this point. She just wants to play. That's what makes this moment so strong, as it reminds everyone why they're here, and allows their second song to be well received by the audience. To her surprise, Hitori ended up being the key needed to help Keisoku Band shine brighter than any other star that night, not only to the characters in the show, but also to me. When discussing the music last time, I largely shrugged it off. saying that it didn't slap as hard as K-on's and not much else. With enough time, though, I've grown to love the music after appreciating the context of it. While simpler than a Hokago Tea Time song, Keisoku band songs are just as integral to the viewer experience. It connects back to Hitori perfectly, as the socially outcasted and rebellious rock genre fits perfectly with her character. The choruses of the music also sound great, and they feel like Hitori spelling out all of her pain in musical form. These songs are genuinely emotional to listen to, and I love that. When I need to take a step back and sulk in my negative emotions, these songs end up helping me a lot. Another one of my criticisms was that Kita was the only vocalist, but I was just downright wrong. This is because the EDs have different band members singing, and it adds some much needed variety. So, I'm sorry for what I said last time, as the music in BOCCHI the Rock is excellent. Unfortunately though, Hitori became exhausted after my rant, so while everyone else is celebrating, she needs to take a breather. To her surprise though, Nijika also needed one, and little did I know that this would become one of the greatest scenes I've ever seen in anime. Last time, I described Nijika as a late bloomer. Given how strong the rest of the cast is, I had no doubts that she would eventually go from the weakest character to one who can stand strong on her own. What I couldn't calculate, though, was that she'd become one of the best characters. That scene where she name-dropped the title had me going, and I apologize to all headphone users. Oh, let's fucking go! It's a moment so hyped that not even the best of the shonen genre could hope to top it. I'm getting ahead of myself though. I mean, I need to unpack why this scene is so strong, as I'm sure you're all itching to find out why it made you pop off so hard. Well, it's because we finally get closer to knowing more about Nijika. An interpretation of her character I got from the comments section beautifully explained why her relationship with Hitori is so important, to the point of it making the show as good as it is. Essentially, it goes that Nijika doesn't necessarily oppose Hitori in terms of personality like we're made to believe at first. While she's far easier to approach and a lot more sociable, she hides her true intentions. That's why even after episode 8, we still know so little about her. All we were able to truly gather is how perceptive she is. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been the first one to find out that Hitori runs the Guitar Hero YouTube channel. Despite this, she doesn't do it maliciously. I mean, how could she? The scene doesn't just exist to show us more of Nijika's character, but it also exists to show us how she motivates Hitori. It's not manipulative either. You can tell she's being genuine, not only through how Cloverworks conveys the scene through motion and sound, but also because it's made obvious from the very beginning that music is her means of expression. That's what the point of the show is, after all, and if she wasn't genuine in this passion, then Ryo wouldn't have even joined her band to begin with. That's why this scene manages to be both hype and wholesome at the same time. It gives us the biggest tease yet of Nijika's character moving forward, and it's what helps make this the best scene of the series at this point. This was when we figured out that Nijika arguably helps carry the plot just as much as Hitori. Nijika helps give Hitori a platform to play guitar in front of an audience of potential new friends, while Hitori helps Nijika be more open and honest toward others. The only reason why this works is because Hitori doesn't have any bad intentions. She'll listen intently, which is what Nijika needs the most. I'm glad I was right when I said that Nijika would be a late bloomer, and she bloomed brighter than almost anyone else. While nothing really happens in this episode, I still think it's extremely important, as it shows us that despite all the progress she's made, Hitori has still yet to get over her social anxiety. It makes sense too. She's still made incredible strides in her development, but it's not realistic for one performance to solve all of her problems. As such, the humor of this episode is more cruel than the rest of the series. This put some people off, but I understood why it had to be this way. It's not to say that this was the only kind of humor either. There's a lot of moments where other characters are the butt of the joke, like when they make fun of Ryo's spending habits and the fact that Kita's the only one who can walk for an extended period of time. What truly propels this episode to greatness, though, is the final scene, where Hitori gets a genuinely sweet moment with Kita. She ends up telling her that if Hitori wants to hang out with her again, she can just ask her. They're friends for a reason, after all. Kita was the perfect choice for this scene too, as despite her personality contrasting Hitori so much, she she still ends up being the one who shows the most immediate respect toward her, and it's through something as simple as her name. Kita, unlike Ryo and Nijika, doesn't use Hitori's nickname. In the episode before, it was revealed that Kita feels embarrassed when other people use her first name of Ikuyo, since it's so embarrassing for her to be named after such a common Japanese word. It's because of this that she wants to respect Hitori by not calling her BOCCHI, a nickname which is a pun based off of her social anxiety. What's cool too is that this respect is earned through how Hitori helped her with her problems as soon as episode 3. In that sense, this scene where shows Kita trying to give back to her by being someone that Hitori can genuinely feel comfortable around, as without her help the distance between them would stay staggering. It's part of the scene being so good too that makes the moment in episode 12 where Kita finally calls her Hitori-chan instead of Goto-san so satisfying. It's due to all these factors that I surprisingly ended up getting close to tears. I think it's because it made me realize how much my friends mean to me. I don't have many of them, but I'm sure if I ever have a lonely summer break like Hitori did, that my friends would be willing to hang out with me. That's why I like watching anime in general. They help me notice things about myself that I wouldn't have noticed without their help, and I appreciate that a lot. I truly have a newfound fondness for how Kita is handled in this half of the story, and I couldn't be happier for that. Just what an excellent character. All that, though, was merely a precursor to my favorite episode, where Drunk Girl miraculously becomes damn near close to my favorite character. She was first introduced in episode 6, where she spent her time helping Hitori gain an audience. Even though she isn't developed much here, her personality is shown beautifully. She's an absolute wreck of a person, with awful spending habits and a very apparent alcohol addiction. But despite this, her free-spirit personality makes her seem happy with the life she lives. Not only that, but she's a genuinely good person. She has no reason to help Hitori get out of her shell, but she does so anyway, out of the goodness of her heart. That's not all though, as episode 10 helps expand on her further, in a scene that I can only describe as my favorite so far. To understand why this scene works though, you must first understand what's in Hitori's head. In this episode, she's struggling with the thoughts of if she should perform at the school festival. Given Hitori's personality, she spends the whole episode overthinking it. It's one thing to perform in front of strangers. When you're done, you'll likely never see them again. Their opinion doesn't matter. That's why I'm able to make these videos without flipping my shit at least. And I imagine it's the same for Hitori, as performing in a school is significantly harder. This time, if you embarrass yourself, you can't escape it. You'll be labeled as the failure until you graduate, which says a lot given how Hitori is only halfway through her first year. It's because of this that it's easy, for me at least, to resonate with that fear. I don't quite relate to it though. Even though I find the idea of talking to someone to be horrifying, the idea of performing doesn't faze me at all. In fact, I love it. It's the only situation where I can run my mouth without being judged. They have to listen to me and to not consider themselves rude, and I find that even if I do a bad job, people either don't care, forget about it, or think I did well anyway. And frankly, I don't get why I'm this way. I should be scared of this shit, but I'm just not. I guess it's just a product of being an overly enthusiastic YouTuber. Despite this, I very much still relate to Hitori. I made that clear in the last video, after all, but I may not have made it clear enough. I got a comment from someone who tried to downplay my issues, due to them not thinking of Hitori as a realistic portrayal of social anxiety, and the fact that I didn't like Watamote. Like, I disliked Watamote because it was relatable. It was actively painful to watch someone struggle with the same shit I struggled with back in middle school, primarily. That was a time of my life where I felt the most insecure. I was scared of being bullied because instead of being accepted as the weird autistic kid like I was in elementary school, I was bullied. I'd like to think I've changed, but I really haven't. Ever since then, I've never been honest to my peers. I never let anyone see me as the eccentric weeb. I either blend in or tell stupid jokes to distract everyone from the fact that I'm a wreck of a person. That's why BOCCHI the Rock means so much to me. It's through relating to Hitori's social struggles that I finally have hope that I can change. That's what all my favorite anime do, really. They show me the worst aspects of myself and tell me that it's not too late to change despite that. I think that's why this episode so effortlessly decimated my emotional core, and out of all the characters, it was somehow Drunk Girl who did it. It's after seeing her performance that Hitori is impressed, but depressed about how utterly outclassed she feels. It's here where Drunk Girl tells her that it's okay. When she was her age, she couldn't even get on stage. Unlike Hitori, it took her a long time to make any sort of progress, and she didn't even need alcohol to do it. She wanted to help Hitori because she saw so much of herself in her. She didn't want Hitori to waste her talent like she did for so many years. This scene resonates with me on so many levels. On one hand, it tells me that one of my mindsets is frankly stupid. One thing I always tell myself is that I'm not good enough, or that I haven't done enough. If I manage to be satisfied with my position, then there's no way I could possibly improve. If I settle now, then there's no way I could be the best. If I'm not the best, then who the hell am I? Will anyone accept me? Will anyone love this train wreck? I ask myself these questions because I can't love myself. I hate myself. I fucking hate myself. I think that's why when I watched the scene, I felt like Drunk Girl was telling me that I should love myself. I should be proud of everything I've done up to this point. Of course, I still have more growing to do, but to not recognize the work I've put in is a severe disservice to myself. This didn't quite click to me until I started writing about it. Hell, my mindset probably won't even change. But for the first time, I finally feel convinced that it is a problem as opposed to a motivator. I knew it was tearing apart my mental health deep down, but now I know that for a fact. That's not all though. This scene also taught me something else, and that's directly related to my own social anxiety. When Drunk Girl tells Hitori that she should apply to the school festival concert, it felt to me like she was saying that you just need to do the things that make you scared. It doesn't come off as condescending either, as Drunk Girl lived through the same pain Hitori felt. That's why it feels genuinely motivating to not only Hitori, but also to me. I let my fear consume me. If I haven't, then I probably wouldn't relate to Hitori at all. I think that's why this scene almost had me in tears. It just tore me apart. Each week just has me feeling more motivated to finally improve. It must have felt like that for Hitori too. As when Kita apologizes for turning in the school festival submission form without her permission, Hitori isn't angry at her, but is instead glad that she helped her get out of her comfort zone. Many may prefer episode 8, but episode 10 was when I finally knew that BOCCHI the Rock was one of the greatest anime I've seen. This episode felt like the first half of KL in episode 6, but stretched out for 24 minutes, and while that seems like a very boring idea on the surface, it actually ends up being great. This episode is a lot like episode 7, in that it doesn't care about moving the plot forward, but is instead content with having the comedy and characters carry the episode. It makes sense too, we're nearing the finale of the series, so having a bit of chill time before the climactic ending fits well. That's all I have to say though. If I did have anything else, then I'd just be repeating what I said in the episode 7 review. And since that doesn't make for a very compelling video, we may as well hop to the finale. The sheer emotion of this episode was unrivaled. This isn't the best episode or anything, but just the fact that this is the end truly hit hard. I think the reason why this is one of the weaker episodes, though, may have to do with how it peaked at the beginning. That doesn't mean that the rest wasn't some of my favorite minutes of anime, because they were. Otherwise it wouldn't be a masterpiece. It's just that my expectations might have been too high. That start, though, is pretty much perfect. Their first song goes as planned, but before their second song, Hitori breaks a string. The payoff to this moment is so satisfyingly handled too, as she comes up with a creative solution to the problem and amazes the people around her. It's a great way of adding tension to a scene which would have otherwise been stale. It all goes south though once Hitori gets handed a microphone and gets so nervous she jumps. Thankfully then the series didn't end, as Hitori only jumped a few feet. What this moment did do though is make her overthink the moment so much that much of her progress wound up reverted. This should be frustrating, but it's not at all. In fact, it's surprisingly realistic. Whenever I do something embarrassing, or I'm away from people for too long, my social skills go down the drain, and this episode captures that so perfectly with her struggles to talk to the manager of a guitar shop. Not only is this moment realistic though, but it also benefits the story. There's still so much to explore with our socially anxious iteration of Hitori, both comedically and dramatically, that it would seem like a waste to conclude it in one season. That's the thing though, I only think this works as an ending if the series gets a second season. It probably probably will, given how the manga is still publishing and the anime has proven successful despite its niche appeal, but it hasn't been confirmed, and that scares me a bit. The fact that it does, though, only speaks to its quality. I hope for not only a complete adaptation, but a full one, as BOCCHI the Rock has become one of my favorite anime ever made. Thank you all so much for watching this video. Frankly, I'm a little worried about how this one will be received. The pressure of releasing a follow-up to one of the most viewed things I've ever made is surprisingly scary. Despite this, I knew I needed to make this video. Not because of the initial video's success, but rather because the anime is so good that I couldn't have not talked about it again. Overall, I think that's when my analysis is at its strongest. It's whenever I find a series that speaks to me so closely that I can talk about it for a seemingly endless amount of time. It's because of this, though, that I'll be taking a week or two off from this channel. Well, that's not the only reason. While it's been fun to put such a strong focus on this channel, I'll be back in school by the time this video releases, and then I'll take a lot of my time away from working on videos. As such, I think it would be smarter of me to put my time into my more popular Pokemon channel. Don't expect me to be gone for long though, as this channel is a passion project of mine. As soon as something amazes me in the winter season, I'll be sure to talk about it. With that said, I thank you all a great deal, and I'll see you all next time.